Back as we continue our coverage of this breaking news out of Brussels, Belgium, where there has been an attack at the airport as well as a metro station, and unfortunately a death toll that is rising. We're just hearing from the Belgian officials that there are 20 dead stemming from that metro attack, and the last count was 11 at the airport. But we'll continue to watch those figures as we turn to NBC's Richard Engel. Richard, good morning. What are your sources telling you?
Well, I can tell you that U.S. counterterrorism officials are watching this very closely. They believe this was sophisticated, coordinated, and the work of, quote, a cell. There is a manhunt underway in Brussels. They are looking for other possible accomplices. So they apparently also believe this was the work of a cell. U.S. officials are specifically trying to figure out how big this cell is, how many more people are still at large. And troublingly, when I asked a counterterrorism official, is this possibly the start of a wave of attacks in Europe, the response was, quote, likely. So the U.S. is monitoring this very closely, and so far from what they're seeing, they're not encouraged. They believe that this was a cell, don't know how big it is, and that there could be more attacks.
All right, Richard, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Go back, if we can, in the control room to those images we just showed of the subway and the people making their way off that train into those tunnels. And you can hear in the background the screaming and the despair of people who not only have just witnessed an explosion, but then are cast into the darkness and try to find their way back above ground. The city streets in Brussels right now are basically at a standstill. People have been told to shelter in place. I would imagine most people are either in businesses, 8 o'clock in the morning, whether they were at their businesses or schools is yet to be determined, but clearly there is no transportation of any kind, really. I guess a few people are being allowed to drive in some areas of the city, but there are no subways, there are no buses running. We know that air traffic in and out of Brussels has been brought to a close because of the attacks at the airport. It is a very difficult day to be living in Brussels, Belgium.
This is a live picture we're looking at right now, seeing mostly law enforcement and the grim face of somebody just walking along. As we said, this is a city that's been shut down. It's been hit by a devastating terror attack on 2 fronts this morning, and now just the fear that there could be more, and trying to take a measure of what might be coming next. This is an area that has really been experiencing a great deal of this kind of tension for the last few months, at least since November 13th, when those attacks happened in Paris. And not long after they happened, it was discovered that they were the work largely of a cell, an ISIS-inspired cell that was operating and living in this district of Brussels, Belgium, known as Molenbeek. And this morning we're seeing, once again, that the fruits of that kind of terror activity. We should mention this takes place 4 days after the arrest of a key figure from those Paris attacks, the remaining fugitive, Saleh Abdeslam, who had been living before the attacks in Paris in this area of Brussels and after, and was apprehended there late last week. And now the question for authorities to dig through this morning is that arrest, is the arrest of that man connected, and in what way?
Well, if you were an accomplice of Abdeslam and you knew that he had been arrested, and you would have to think, or have to wonder at least, would your identity be compromised? Would your location be compromised? And if in fact you had the materials at your disposal to make a bomb or a suicide vest, would you then go out and use them quickly before your capture?